Welcome back to Skytech-Lens. Hey everyone, SKL here. Today, we're leaving the garage for the grain fields to break down a global shift that's shaking the world's economic engine. For decades, US wheat was the gold standard, reliable, trusted, and essential. But as we hit the mid-2020s, that dominance crumbled. Major importers, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, started looking elsewhere. Canada, Australia, Argentina. Why? It's not just price. It's about trust, predictability, and tech-driven transparency. When a supplier gets unpredictable, buyers move on. US agriculture lost traction, bogged down by regulations, politics, and lagging tech. This isn't just about farming, it's about global power and the cost of standing still. Let's pop the hood and see how the crown slipped. For decades, US wheat was the global benchmark, reliable, consistent, and always on time. Nations built food security around it, signing contracts years in advance. But then, the gears slipped. It wasn't one disaster, but a series of small failures. Delayed shipments, tangled paperwork, and ever-changing regulations. State and federal rules clashed, creating a maze that slowed everything down. For buyers planning months ahead, even a short delay was a disaster. Regulatory volatility became the new normal. One administration streamlined, the next added red tape. International buyers couldn't risk that kind of uncertainty. Canada saw the opening and moved fast. While the US system grew more complex, Canada simplified theirs, investing in infrastructure and regulatory consistency. They sold not just wheat, but certainty. Then came the digital divide. The world wanted real-time tracking, digital compliance, and blockchain-verified provenance. US agriculture, fragmented and slow to adapt, couldn't deliver. Canada and Australia rolled out national digital platforms. Buyers could verify every detail with a click. The US looked analog in a digital world. The result? A quiet exodus. Buyers shifted from US wheat to Canadian and Australian, not just for price, but for reliability and compliance. The US lost its status as the default no-risk option. The crown was tarnished. The world's supply chain had moved on and the US was left behind. Beyond logistics, chemistry became a new battleground. Glyphosate, a common herbicide, was standard for US farmers. But global standards changed. Countries like Japan and South Korea set stricter residue limits than the US. Suddenly, legal US wheat was being rejected at foreign ports. Imagine a shipment worth millions, impounded over a failed test. No buyer wants that risk. Canada saw this coming. They educated farmers, discouraged glyphosate use for export crops, and promoted alternatives. Their message: we meet your standards, not just ours. This proactive approach became a selling point. The US response? Slow and fragmented. Farmer groups argued their practices were safe, but in global trade, perception is reality. While the US debated, Canada won market share. The issue snowballed. Europe, with even stricter rules, favored Canada. Canada could guarantee compliance. The US struggled to segregate supply. The real problem: the US failed to adapt to a buyer-driven market. Canada delivered what customers wanted, the US kept selling what it produced. Doubts grew, and demand stalled. If chemicals were a slow burn, border logistics were a sudden stall, especially with Mexico, America's biggest wheat customer. For years, US wheat flowed south without a hitch. But new, politically motivated border protocols brought delays and uncertainty. Grain that once cleared in hours now sat for days. For Mexican millers, a 3-day delay was a crisis. Canada seized the moment. While US trains idled at the border, Canada shipped wheat by sea. Reliable, predictable, and immune to land border politics. Canada's rail and port upgrades paid off. They could guarantee arrival windows. US rail, bogged down by mixed freight and new border checks, couldn't compete. Mexican buyers, burned by US delays, signed bigger contracts with Canada. The shift was swift and dramatic. The border bottleneck didn't just hurt wheat, it damaged trust across all AG products. Even when the border ran smoothly, buyers remembered the last shutdown. Canada became the safe bet. US farmers and railroads lost out. What was once a captive market became a battleground. The border, once a conduit, became a barrier, and Canada simply sailed around it. Canada's rise started with a crisis. China suddenly banned Canadian canola. Instead of panicking, Canada pivoted. The government, farmers, and grain companies launched a national strategy: diversify, modernize, and target wheat. They saw US weaknesses, regulatory chaos, chemical debates, logistics, and built their plan to exploit them. It wasn't just about planting more wheat. Canada invested in R&D, creating wheat varieties tailored to premium markets. They modernized rail and ports, slashing costs and boosting reliability. The real game changer? Digital tools. The Canadian Grain Commission built a unified digital platform. Buyers could trace every bushel, from field to port. This transparency set a new global standard. Canada could customize shipments to meet any buyer's specs, something the US couldn't match. Trade officials became relentless advocates, selling not just grain, but the system itself. The canola crisis forced Canada to reinvent itself, and it worked. They became smarter, more agile, and more customer-focused. Canada didn't just recover, it redefined what it means to be a global grain leader. As Canada surged, Washington finally woke up. The Strategic Grain Reliability Act was proposed, a sweeping fix billions for rail, ports, and a national digital platform. Agri-export strike teams would troubleshoot trade disputes in real time. The act tackled chemical compliance, offering subsidies for farmers to meet strict foreign standards. It was a pragmatic shift. Stop arguing, start delivering what buyers want. But politics got in the way. The bill became a political football, pet projects, amendments, endless debate. As Congress stalled, Canada and Australia kept signing deals. The US window to reclaim lost ground was closing fast. The same political volatility that scared buyers was now blocking the fix. Farmers watched in frustration. Solutions dangled, but action was slow. Even if the act passed, rebuilding trust and infrastructure would take years. Canada had already set the new standard. The US was no longer the incumbent, it was the challenger fighting to catch up. American agriculture is at a crossroads. The engine has stalled, and the competition has lapped us. The decline of US wheat is a lesson in what happens when an industry fails to adapt. Can the US rebuild trust, or is the damage permanent? Buyers have new relationships and expectations. Fixing old problems may not be enough. The US must offer more real proof of reliability and innovation. Canada's rise was masterful but built on American missteps. If the US gets its act together, can it expose Canadian weaknesses, or is Canada's system too strong? Washington faces a choice: retaliatory tariffs or a bold leap in agtech and innovation. Should America fight the last war, or invent the next one? This isn't just policy, it's about farmers' livelihoods and America's global reputation. The next few years will decide if this is a setback or a permanent decline. Will the US stay stuck or find a new gear and rejoin the race? The final lap is underway. The stakes couldn't be higher. What does it take to reclaim glory, brute force, or reinvention? The world is watching. Now it's your turn. What's the most critical factor in this decline? Politics, tech, or chemicals? What should be the top priority for the US to fix? Let's continue the conversation in the comments. Your insights matter. The big question: can American wheat rebuild global trust, or is the market lost? Is a legislative fix enough, or will the US always be playing catch-up? Canada built a superior system. Can they sustain it as the US wakes up? Should America double down on agtech or fight for market access with tariffs? We've broken down the mechanics, now we want your ideas. Sound off in the comments. If you found this valuable, like and subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel now for more updates.